The house was dark. Sarah sat up, rubbed her eyes, and groaned. Was this going to be another night of sleeping in 2-hour increments? At any rate, she was afraid of the dark. Actually, she was terrified of the dark. Her mother-in-law must have turned off all the lights again. Fortunately, her snoring husband lay not 2 feet away, giving her the false courage she would never have had if she'd been alone. She quickly got up, switched the lamp on, and sighed with relief. Relaxing a little now that the room was lit, she reached for her herbal sleep supplements. "I wonder why I'm having so much trouble lately," she mumbled. Popping 2 capsules out of the blister pack, she reached for the waters she kept on the nightstand and swallowed them. Setting her cup down, she noticed the movie that had been playing on the computer had stopped, leaving the house deathly quiet. Sarah didn't like this one bit, and quickly pulled up an old movie on YouTube to drown out the silence. As the movie played, her mind wandered. Sarah and her husband Andy had just gotten back from their brief honeymoon. They'd gotten married in, and stayed in, Las Vegas. It's also where Andy's mother lived, and where Sarah was born. Sarah and Andy were struggling. Andy had had his own business briefly, but to say his business partner turned out to be shady would have been an understatement. Andy had been left almost penniless. Fortunately, Sarah had gotten hired as a cocktail waitress, but she had only been working for a few weeks. Andy's mother, Eunice, had offered to let them stay until they were back on their feet. Eunice's house was new-ish, but Sarah had always felt distinctly unsettled while staying there. Even before they'd moved in, Eunice had noticed her dog, barking at the walls, not wanting to go into certain rooms, and having nightmares. Sarah was particularly nervous in and around the front room, the large entryway that was hardly ever used. When Sarah got up at night, she always felt something was in that room, waiting. It was the largest room in the house, with vaulted ceilings and many of Eunice's antiques arranged randomly in the large space. There was an old wardrobe in that room, brought over from when Eunice had lived in Asia. Eunice had once said that she thought it was over 150 years old. Sarah didn't like walking past it even during the day. Sarah realized she really, really wanted a cigarette. Sure enough, thinking about having to sneak past the ominous front room to get outside to smoke had made her want one. She sighed and got up. It was still unnervingly quiet, even with the YouTube movie playing on the computer. Just then, she thought she heard something. Something that definitely didn't come from the computer. It was ever so slight, but she could swear she heard scratching? Huh, she said to herself, trying to ease the waves of tension and fear that had suddenly gripped her. She glanced at her sleeping, snoring husband and decided it had to have been him she had heard. "Well, I'm jumpy," she muttered. She turned her thoughts back to that cigarette and remembered she had chocolate ice cream in the freezer. She felt immediately lighter and more relaxed. She grabbed her pack of cigarettes and her lighter and proceeded out of the bedroom. Out in the hallway, she started to feel slightly uneasy again. She turned on 2 of the hallway lights instead of the usual 1. Again, she thought she heard scratching. So slight, it was as if it lingered in that space between imagined and real. She quickened her pace towards the patio door, telling herself a million things could be responsible for any number of noises heard in a house at night. She just about almost convinced herself, too, as she half-heartedly pulled back the vertical blinds to reveal the mirrored glass of the sliding patio door. In the split second she glanced at the glass before pulling the door open, her heart stopped. Her blood froze. She wanted to scream, but was only dimly aware of a gurgling sound coming from her throat. Towering over her, to her absolute horror, there was a face. In the insanity of that moment, she found herself thinking it was big, terrifyingly disproportionate to what you'd just expect coming face to face with someone. Cracked white skin, sick, fish belly white, evil black holes where the eye sockets should have been, somehow staring back into her eyes. The mouth. It was really the mouth, Sarah realized, that seemed so freakishly big. Huge, disjointed lower jaw hanging agape. Impossibly low. The entire mouth opened and stretched impossibly wide. Both jaws lined with rows of teeth like an angler fish. Huge, sharp, white teeth. The jaw started to droop even lower, the maw stretching wider into what seemed like the most demonic grin imaginable. Sarah was trapped in a hellish nightmare, unable to fully grasp what she was seeing. When Anna, Eunice's dog, began barking behind her, Sarah jumped about 3 feet in the air, snapping out of her frozen terror. She clutched her chest, waves of nausea and disbelief washing over her. Just then Andy, having been woken up by Anna's barking, said, "Sarah, babe, are you okay? What are you doing?" Sarah slowly turned to face him. As soon as Andy saw her face, he rushed over to her. He grabbed her and hugged her tightly. "Oh my God, what's wrong?" he asked, instantly alarmed by her white face and trembling body. "Is there someone out there? Get away from the door." He moved to open the patio door, and Sarah whimpered, "No, Andy, let's just go back to bed. I'm fine, really." He looked thoroughly unconvinced. He held her at arm's length, looking into her eyes with concern. "Really, I had a nightmare," she said. "I got up to smoke, and I thought I saw something outside. Just my mind playing tricks." He sighed. "Okay, sweetheart," he said. He put his arm around her, and as they both turned, Sarah caught a glimpse of the empty, looming doorway to the front room reflected in the glass. Suddenly it dawned on her, sharp and painful. She had seen the thing reflected behind her, not in front of her. Behind her, where the entrance to the front room was.